Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Trader Stories podcast here with Hola Prime. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Kyle O'Brien from New England, United States, who has two 100K funded accounts with us and has recently had a payout of $2,400. So he's done really, really well. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. And thank you for having me. It's always exciting to talk about trading and things that we're all passionate about. So thank you for having me here.
No, you're most welcome. Kyle, I would love to get to know you as a person. So is it possible you can tell us a little bit about yourself, your backstory, your day job, how you got into trading, all that kind of stuff?
Sure. Yeah, day job, I'm a medical data analyst. So I
Oh,
spend
amazing.
a lot of time around data, which I think probably helps with all this in the end.
100%.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think like most people, we always have aspirations to do something more than be a 9 to 5 job, working for some other manager, et cetera, et cetera. So I've always been looking for ways to get around that, and it's taken me down a lot of interesting routes from trying to do like Google Ads marketing to sales to a whole bunch of other things that did not work, and eventually trading just sort of fell in as like, hey, this could be the next thing you could try, right? I think a lot of people with those same goals eventually find that same path of, oh, trading sounds fun, right? I just spend an hour a day and I make $100,000 a day, right? That's the vision that we all get sold when you see everything,
Yeah.
all these influencers doing it, and then of course you get your culture shock of reality when you start doing it and realize, oh, this is really difficult somehow. Um, so I think that's probably mimics a lot of other people's journeys. Is about 3 or 4 years ago, I started dabbling around in the crypto world,
Yeah.
just placing a few random trades, and this is starting to catch the beginning of the gigantic bull market in crypto. So any trade that you make made money. So of course you felt incredible because, oh, I'm a great
Yeah.
trader. Like the whole market's going up, like a rising tide raises all boats. So it doesn't really matter what you trade at that point. So then I got a little cockier and was like, oh yeah, we can move this into like Forex and indices and things like that, and promptly found out it's not the same thing. Um, so probably spent the last couple years mostly struggling around in futility, bouncing from strategy to strategy, trying to do way too many complicated things. Whether that be sort of smart money concepts, a whole bunch of time-based algorithms, things that did not work, things
Yeah.
making way too complicated. And finally, I would say over the past 6 months or so, have found a lot more success just being simple, just going back to basics, looking at simple price action, just trying to get a feel for the charts. You put in the time, you kind of start to get an idea of what things are doing, and then just scaling down, lowering the risk. And that's kind of what brought me here today, and finally the first level of success.
That's amazing. What a story as well. And how long roughly did it take you before you would say you started seeing like decent results with trading?
Longer than it should have. I would probably say like a year and a half of like dedicated effort, every single day. As mentioned, there is a day job, so it doesn't always work as continuously as I would like it to. There's
Yeah,
that job still comes first. It is the thing that pays my
of
bills.
course.
So
Of
yeah,
course.
so there are weeks where trading kind of has to take the back burner. I have to adjust my times. I'm do data analysis and product support right now, so I work some interesting hours. So the times that I get to trade kind of bounce all over the place. So it's kind of just
Sure.
fitting that in where I can. But so about a year and a half, I would say it took me to get to this point. And one of the real breakthroughs was figuring out that I didn't have to do what made other people successful. You see other people will use their strategies and what works for them. But that doesn't mean it fits my mindset. It doesn't mean it fits my trading windows. It doesn't mean it fits any of my psychology. So
Mm,
once I started trying to go with the strategies like, oh, this guy is, making $100,000 a month trading this. Well, it's like, well, that works for him, but it doesn't necessarily
yeah,
work for me. So it was
so
back
true.
test, lot of effort, a lot of back testing, a lot of data analysis, and then finally just sitting down and being like, what would work for me? And then finding a way to make that work.
Yeah, no, you're 100% true. And Kyle, by the way, a year and a half whilst doing a day job is actually very quick.
Fair.
On
I will say
average, it
there's
takes people longer.
lot of effort into testing. lot of hours spent on the weekend, on TradingView doing live replays of everything, trying to figure
Yeah.
out what worked. So a lot of effort went into that time.
No, I can imagine. If you did it in a year and a half, whilst also working full time, that's actually genuinely very impressive.
Wow.
I mean, most people, I would say on average, if I had to give a number, probably 3, 4 years.
Okay.
Um, yeah, sure, people have done it quicker, but a lot of time they weren't working a day job, maybe part time. They had a lot more time to put into it. But
Mm-hmm.
a year and a half, by all means, is actually a phenomenal. I mean, just to put it in perspective, took me 10 years.
Wow. All
So,
right. Well, I admire the dedication. I think that's even more difficult. That's
well, I mean, I guess some call it dedication, others call it an addiction almost. So,
two sides of the same coin.
exactly. Do you remember how you actually discovered trading? Was it straight from crypto, from the whole bull market and COVID?
Yeah, pretty much it was that. You start talking to enough people in that space, whether it be through you start to connect with people all over the world, which is, I think, a really underrated part of trading. I speak with a lot of people in the UK and
Yeah,
places and have conversations like this, for example, conversations I never would have had with people from areas of the world that I never would have talked to. And I think that's been fascinating. One of my favorite aspects of it is sharing, realizing how trading in a way kind of it tears down all the other barriers that people might have because you're all there sharing a common interest and a common belief that we all can do this and we're all trying to make each other better, and it's probably been the most supportive community I've ever been around globally,
mm,
which I just think has been fascinating. But that's really what brought me in is having those discussions in the crypto world in the beginning, and then finding out that people hey, have you heard of these like prop firm things and things like that? And that sort of just led into like, oh, I could like because that's always a hindrance is you're starting capital, right? Like it was in
yeah,
crypto too. I was doing really well in the bull market, but I could only trade a few $1,000s because that's all I had. So
yeah,
you could do really awesome returns, but it's still only a few $1,000s of capital. And when it comes down to it, so then I hear discussions about prop firms and getting the Forex and how you can leverage and not knowing what any of that meant at the time, but like, oh, this sounds like fun. I could definitely do this, and that's kind of where it started.
amazing, amazing. No, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. A community, especially a nice, supportive community, can make such a big difference as well when it comes to trading. Um, do you have any kind of defining moment in your trading career where, good or bad, which really kind of changed you, which kind of flicked the switch?
Um, Probably a series, and this is similar to what I was talking about before, is just a series of moments where I'd see what other people were doing and why after watching, even talking with some of these wildly successful people, um, trying to even like I have a full breakdown of what they did. Like I'd see journals of what they did for the day, and then I'd just be back on the charts, just staring at them, be like, how, what, like, where did this come? Like I know exactly what they were doing, why they were doing it, when they were doing it, and how much they were doing it with, and I would still be live replaying these charts and just being like, I never would have done that, and I don't understand why they did that, and I can't. And it was, I think, I wish I'd figured that out faster, but it was spending doing that enough times where I'm just like, well, I'm not these people. Like I'm
Yeah,
not these people. I'm not these people having this wild success. And chances are they went through the same thing before they had success. They were trying to copy someone else that had all this amazing success. And of course you take elements of that. Like you
yeah,
steal bits and pieces, but you can't just go out and do the same exact thing someone else did because you're not the same people. You just process things
yeah,
different. And that was a big moment for me. I think that combined with keeping everything simpler was big because I realized
yeah,
that I'm not good enough at this. Some people are these prodigies that they just read charts and like price is going here because it's taking liquidity here and it's bounced here and we have a fair value gap here, and I'm like, I'm not good enough to do that reliably. So I'm just like, it was simplifying it down and basically just looking at a chart and being like, it looks like it's going to do this, and then risking properly, and that's really all it takes. And those were
yeah,
the moments that I think led me to finally have some success, was finally just realizing that.
yeah. Simplifying trading it's so true because I think when you start out, you kind of almost always want to be right.
Mm-hmm.
Your
Yep.
goal is to always be right, and that's just impossible, right? Um, when really what you should be focusing is just finding an edge, even if it's a small edge. If you play enough, do enough trades, it will I mean, you're an analyst, a data analyst. You know this. You know statistical data. If you let that edge play out, that's all right.
Sorry about that.
If you let that edge play out, it will play out and you will see results over the longer term. But we find a lot of people, what they do is they hit a losing streak, which will happen to every
Mhm,
trader out there. Anyone watching, you are going to hit a losing streak at some point in your career, and
mhm.
people start changing the recipe. They start
Exactly.
switching a different strategy. They start, basically playing with their edge. And
Mhm.
they never allow that edge to play out then, and it just goes worse and worse and worse. Or they're risking too much on, a few on one trade, and therefore they
Yeah.
can't absorb, if they do have a losing streak, it's already
Yeah.
over for them. So it's one or the other. So I definitely think the fact that you are, and I'm assuming by nature, based on your job, you are quite an analytical person, logical minded. That definitely probably gave you an edge as well when it came to understanding the aim of the game of trading, essentially.
I think so. So yes, agreed. Like having the understanding of sort of how data works out over time was hugely helpful. But then still in the moment, the second that you get into the ringer and you're losing two or three in a row, that data suddenly feels very far away. So I think
Yeah,
the biggest work that I've had to do was mentally on myself, was psychology, because even with that background and even having all of these back tested results, being like, it's okay. In back testing, you saw you had a five trade losing streak, and you're fine. Your strategy can absorb that. But then when you're in the middle of that five trade losing streak, you're like, what if this is the sixth one? What if this is the seventh one? And then you start rushing, and and that affected me for a long time. And honestly, I think one of the best things I heard about that was bringing it back to baseball. Was you have the best hitters in history, even are hitting, if you get a hit 30% of the time, you're killing it, which doesn't always carry over because depending on your strategy, 30% win rate might not be enough. But it's the mentality that even these hitters, when you're only hitting 30%, they go through slumps where you may not get a hit in 50 at bats. Like, and
mm,
that's a bad slump, but you don't go back and rework everything you've ever worked on that brought you to that moment. When you look over a career, that's such a small blip, it disappears. So I think it's that same mentality that, just like you said, I think it's people's strategy. When something goes bad and you have a
yeah,
losing streak, that even if your testing has showed that the losing streak happens, you get in the middle of it, like oh, this doesn't work in real life. Let's strategy hop, and then you reset everything, and then it's months again to get back to that point where you just were at, just to hit the same
yeah,
adversity and do the same thing over again. That's
yeah. I mean, a great analogy as well. I always say, to understand trading, you need to, like, if I told you to play the lottery and I told you to pick the numbers one, two, three, four, five, six as your winning numbers, majority of people will be like, no, that's ridiculous. Why would I? That's insane. Why would I? But statistically speaking, it has just as the same amount of chance of winning than any random combination of numbers. So if that feels good and feels normal to you, you are ready to trade big time. If you can truly understand that, then yeah, you're ready for it because then you understand the aim of the game essentially, that it is all about statistics, and the statistic will play out. You can have, you can flip a coin, even if it's 50-50, which it is obviously a coin flip. It can land on heads 10 times in a row. It can happen. Unlikely, but it can happen. And the same will happen. If there's one thing I learned about the markets, whatever you believe is very unlikely to happen, it will happen at some point and catch you
yeah.
off guard. So you almost always got to be prepared for the worst, and have that implemented in your overall trading strategy so you can absorb when that bad day or bad streak happens, and it doesn't, knock you too bad. Um, I want to move on and talk a little bit about your strategy. Can you kind of just roughly explain what you look for in a day and, what you look for in a trade?
Sure. So I will say I don't ultimately I don't think strategy is that important, which of course sounds like heresy because everyone thinks strategy. Everyone's just looking for that golden strategy, as have I been for so long. That like, oh, it's foolproof, it'll make money, but like that doesn't exist.
No.
In reality, there's thousands of strategies out there that work fine.
Yeah.
And they're all over the internet. There's no secrets. You can YouTube a lot of the strategies that people are shelling out on YouTube will probably work if you just give them enough time and scale and risk and just like almost any strategy can work as long as you said, it has a slight edge. You get the casino effect going. You're just slightly better. But so for me, just finally keeping it simple was the best approach. Just looking at a sort of a shorter, a medium, and a longer term moving average, and just waiting for those to cross appropriately, and ideally finding a pullback into keeping those EMAs nicely. Like I like to see space, have those EMAs fanned out.
Yeah.
And the exact one doesn't, the EMAs doesn't matter. It could be a 70, a 50, 100, 7, 100, 200, kind of whatever you're feeling. Like it's not, the details are not that important.
Yeah.
And basically you're just waiting for those to align in a way that shows you that price is trending. You've crossed and you have them aligned properly and fanned out some space between them. And then I just look for a nice pullback into those and then a nice impulse away from them while keeping them spread out to show that the trend is still strong. And that's pretty much it. I found that to be the most effective way, is just keeping it simple and then making sure that I risk appropriately and not trading
Yeah.
through any times news terrifying to me. I don't want to move where even if you have stop losses, it can blow right through them.
Yeah.
So that's terrifying. So really, I think it comes down to managing risk way more than the strategy itself. It is knowing
Yes.
that you can't, like you said, absorbing losses. So not you, the I think where people get a little lost is like, oh, I have $100,000 account. I want to make, $10,000 a day. And like, oh, that payout would be amazing. So, I'm going to risk 5% of my account and just target a 1 to 2 because that'll work most of the time. And maybe it does for a little while, but then it doesn't. So I think
Yeah.
dropping that risk down to like 1%, and only targeting 1% a day, that's life changing. Like it took
Yeah.
me probably a week to get the payout, like a 2.5% gain. And like, that felt great. And that's still done over time is life changing. So
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
all you need to do is just, I think, temper your expectations way more than anything. But strategy wise, keep it as simple as possible, unless you're some prodigy on the charts and you have a different edge. That's great. But for all the 95% of the rest of us who have probably struggled a long time, it's keep it simple. And for me, that just meant aligning my EMAs, seeing that a chart is trending, and then waiting for it to pull back to an entry that I liked, and then just wait for confirmation, waiting for a move out of those EMAs, that impulse again that shows the market's trending where I want it to. Enter and just ride that up to the next logical high or low, and then get out. Like, don't target the home run; it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It feels great when it hits, but you're gonna miss 5 times in a row to get that a home run, and like my
Yeah.
psychology can't handle that. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I have is keep it simple, target 1 to 1, 1 to 2 max, but read the charts and see what makes sense that day. It might change day to day. Don't get married to a concept when the charts aren't showing that that's the right thing
Yeah.
to do.
I absolutely love everything you said there. I mean, absolute gold, what you just said there. And it's so true because if you told a lot of traders, you can make money with a simple EMA strategy, like you said, I'll say, yeah, maybe 30 years ago or 20 years ago. But today, no, you need quantitative data and whatnot. It's and it's but the reality is, like you said, it's not even getting the edge in the market is the easy part.
Mm-hmm.
Most strategy, I mean, even if you close your eyes and just pick at any point, buy or sell, you have a 50-50 shot being right, as long as you're
Yeah.
targeting 1 to 1, obviously, right? All you need is just a few percent edge, right?
Yeah.
And so anything, even if you're just then following the trend and that's your
Mm-hmm.
edge, right?
Yeah.
Technically,
It
that
was,
is still an edge. And if as long as you
mm-hmm.
stick to the discipline of it and
Mm-hmm.
keep that risk really low so you never, blow your account, that edge will
Yeah.
play out. And it really is that simple. So I would,
Mm-hmm.
your strategy is ultimately risk management, being
Mm-hmm.
disciplined, and all the psychological parts that you mentioned. That is really where the money is. It's not so much in your actual EMA strategy. It's in your head. It's all in your psychology, and you're absolute living proof of that. That it can be the most simplistic form of trading. Keep it so simple and just allow it to play out. And I absolutely love that because it takes people years to realize that. And then eventually they just fall in line after they've tried every crazy algorithm and, trying to get that 95% win rate. And it just, they're going around in circles and constantly failing. And then eventually they just understand the truth of it, that it really is that simple.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, it just comes down to you don't have to be that good to be successful. You just have to be
Yeah,
consistent.
yeah.
I wouldn't consider myself talented at all at that. I mean, I can sort of read charts, but like I wouldn't consider myself some savant on the charts. It's just consistency, practice over time. And like you said, just keeping it simple, keeping it repeatable and
Yeah.
not swaying away from that when even times get tough.
I love that. I love that. And what instruments do you tend to trade the most? Which ones are your favorite?
I'm a big gold fan. That's probably my favorite one to trade. I just find that it sort of trends pretty well and gives
Yeah.
decent pullbacks and entries. I'll dabble. I tried the indices for a little while, some of the US indices anyway. They're a little too volatile for me. So I'll go into a few of the Forex pairs as well, like USD JPY, Euro USD, Odd USD. Those are probably the three Forex pairs that I would also dabble into. But gold is my preference if I had to choose one. I think that trends the best.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Gold's always an exciting one. And it's good that you got a few different ones there because, some days you will look at a chart, there's just nothing there, right? Gold's just going sideways, being a bit boring. Then, okay, you can jump over to a different instrument and maybe you find something there. So it's good to kind of, because otherwise, I mean, it depends on the type of trader. Like I exclusively generally trade Nasdaq,
Okay,
and S&P, but
better
because
man
I'm
than
a
me.
scalper, I always kind of find some little opportunity at some point. But if I was more of an intraday trader, I would definitely broaden my horizons a bit more because otherwise I would feel I would force a position even when there isn't one just
Yeah.
to get some kind of action in the day.
Mhm.
So it's good, again, it's knowing yourself, right? It's knowing your personality and picking a strategy or formulating a strategy that fits your personality. Some people like the, slow, kind of calm nature of being a swing trader where they can just place a trade, not have to worry about it for a few days, and just let it play out. Don't have to keep checking the charts. Works if you're really busy as well. Intraday,
Yeah.
a bit more excitement. Generally speaking, you're in a trade at least once a day, and but you're not constantly having to look at the charts. And then you've got scalpers who are just glued to the charts for a few hours and just going crazy, So, but it depends on the person. I'm
Exactly.
assuming you're more of an intraday trader.
Yeah, preferably. I liked it. I've of course tried the scalping route because I haven't. What haven't I tried at this point? The struggle with that was I didn't know when to stop.
Yeah.
So I would even if you get on winning streaks, you're like, oh, I might as well take advantage, and then I ended up losing it all in that same day. Or if you get on losing streaks, you're like, well, I need to at least get this back to break even, and I would keep losing, and then end up so the intraday and taking a few hours to half a day or so with a trade really lets me stick to one, maybe two, but preferably one trades per day. And that's another just way of risk management. If you have a set rule of how often you can trade, like and you stick to that religiously, then you can't blow an account fast. If you just
Yeah.
stick to I have a set risk and I have the set number of trades. And that's what worked for me is just being religious to that. And that keeps my account pretty safe while targeting just a little bit more and trying to keep that edge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very well said. And do you have kind of like a fixed rule where, let's say you take a trade, it's a losing one, are you done for the day and then come back tomorrow? Or what kind of risk management rules do you have in place?
Sure. So typically it's just one trade and done. Like I said, I that can get a little dicey depending on where I see my setup in like regards to like news and things like that, because I do avoid that as aggressively as I can. So occasionally I'll have trades that get chopped a little bit short because I saw a good entry that I like, but then we have news approaching and then I'll get out at maybe a quarter of the target I was going. And if I see something else crop up that day, I'll enter a second trade. But once, even if I take like occasionally, you'll take a trade and then you'll see it's just the you thought you had confirmation from the market, but it's not. The market isn't behaving the way that you thought it was going to after you entered. It's fine to cut that off. I know some people like to stick it all the way through the end, which works. That's fine too if you want to just stick to that stop loss. Other people, if they see things are going poorly, will cut something off early to try and get in at the next idea and save face a little bit. And that can bite you both ways, of course, but I sort of like to do that. So if I take a small loss because something wasn't behaving the way I thought it was, I will enter another trade that day if I see a good setup, but I'll never exceed
Yeah.
my maximum risk that I have aligned for that day, no
Yeah.
matter what number of trades it takes to get there. That number is set in stone and can never be violated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the discipline you need as a trader. If you cannot stick to what you just said there, then
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately you'll always have those kind of, where you do okay for a while and then it all goes. And you start
Yep.
back from scratch and then you never truly kind of just keep growing and scaling and getting better and better because you
Mm-hmm.
need that discipline. If that discipline isn't there, you, you're just going to keep going round in circles and it's so frustrating. And that was the hardest part for me. I just kept going round that circle and because I couldn't accept, I think it was an ego thing. I couldn't accept having a losing day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the moment I just was able to let go of that ego and just say, okay, it's fine. I'll come back tomorrow. It's not the end of the world. It all just started working then. So, and that's what took me so long, you know,
Exactly.
you
That's the
know,
hardest part.
yeah,
Is the most underrated part. No one. It's not. Everyone sees these gigantic returns on from traders doing this, influencers doing this, whether those are real or not, and thinks that's what I want to do. And they're like, well, it's like, oh, it's just a strategy. That's all it takes. But no one wants to put in the work of working on the mindset because that's not the sexy part of trading is the work
exactly.
behind the scenes to work on your mindset. But as you said, that's by far the most important part, and it's the most neglected part, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think what kind of clicked in my head at that time was, I saw it as imagine if you want to make more money, which is, everyone wants to make more money, right? But there's two ways you can go about that. You can either spend less money and save a little more, and then you'll be better off at the end of every month, or you can find something to make more money. And generally speaking, it's easier just to save and cut
Mm-hmm.
down your expenses than it is to find something that's going to make you X amount. And that is essentially the same with trading. It's and the psychology. It's easier to kind of um like learn the psychology. Sorry, it's easier to kind of, look for a new strategy that could give you better win rates and better success rates. It sounds more sexy. It sounds like the cooler one. When in reality, it's actually easier just to work on your psychology and tackle that, and then you will see quicker results than constantly jumping from strategy to strategy. Um, I would love to know a little bit. So when you started trading, were you? I'm assuming you did mention you went with your own capital. You started, and I'm assuming you probably still trade your own capital to this day. Um,
Here and there, yep.
how did you get into kind of prop trading?
Just add, just you. Well, one the various discussion groups that I was in on the crypto side as we were trading that, and people just mentioned, "Oh, have you seen this prop firm thing?" Because back it was kind of new. It's that's
Yeah,
no one, and I mean, still to this day, it's tough to tell certain ones that could be scams and don't pay out and things like that. But it's not as rampant as it was maybe a year
yeah,
ago when that was happening constantly because reviews are a little more prevalent now. But anyway, so is that's having those discussions kind of got me started looking into the prop firm side of things, and more research leads to more options, leads to trying everything. But mostly all of the flaws that I had as a trader back then, like suddenly working with a prop firm doesn't fix those. So they were all still there. So it was mostly just a lot of failures. Um, and having some issues with finding dependability on the prop firm side as well.
yeah,
That's why this has really been perfect for me finding someone, getting to Hola Prime and having this sort of dependable firm, as well as having that blend with a strategy that works or not a mindset that works. So like it's a perfect union of having the right opportunity to have the right skills and then the right opportunity provided on your side. So this has been the one that has worked out so far. I think it was all building up to something like this. So I'm very grateful for that.
that's amazing to hear, and we're really happy to have you on board because you're the exact type of trader we would like to attract in masses because you're a safe bet. You don't YOLO. You understand the statistical side of it. You're very consistent and kind of you're not targeting 50% a month or putting too much risk on the table. You understand the game. You understand the long-term game, and you're someone who will be in the game for many years. You're not gonna just have a good month and then everything goes the next month. You're gonna be very consistent, and that's exactly what ultimately what we're looking for. So we're very happy to have you on board and very excited to see how far you'll come because we can imagine, you just told me before we started this interview that you just got a second 100K account funded right now. So absolute phenomenal. Are you looking to get more accounts as well in the future? Are you looking
Yeah,
to
I
scale?
think yes, as I get more confident, I don't want to scale too quickly because this period of success is fairly new for me. So it's still
Sure.
all of it still feels a little bit fake, even though I think mentally I'm in a much better place than I've ever been before. But it still feels a little bit fake. I still feel a little bit like an imposter, like, oh, you're having success, this will go away. So it's still a mental battle right now. So I think I need to slowly build up and keep conquering that emotion and then try and continue to scale up from there as I get more comfortable and
Definitely.
really understand myself, which is, I think, the coolest part of trading. There's very few other things in life I've found anyway that sort of let you simulate these emotions that trading will put you through on a daily day or a daily basis. And it's fascinating to see how you respond to it. And really, the only way to
Yeah.
keep doing it is through repetition. So that is my plan. But I find the whole trading experience very unique and very interesting.
Definitely. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Take your time. There's no rush. The market's not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere either. So take your time with it, bit by bit. Keep doing what you're doing, and you'll go very far. Um, I'd love to know. So you've had a payout. I forgot how much it was. 2000 something.
Yeah, two thousand
2000,
four hundred.
2400. Um, how did you find the whole payout process?
Super easy, incredibly straightforward, fast, reliable, perfect. Well, let's stop there. It was great. It was an incredibly easy process, and very appreciative of that because that's not always the case. So it was a breath of fresh air.
That's excellent to hear. And yeah, because that's obviously one of our big kind of USPs, that we kind of push. And a lot of people are understandably skeptical
Yes.
when we say, 1 hour payouts and things, which we totally understand. And it's only once they actually see it, then they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you
Didn't know
delivered
that was
fully.
possible. So, yeah, we can't wait to have send you more payouts as you progress. I'm sure you're gonna do phenomenally well. I can see it already. You're very disciplined, have the right mindset. Oh, you've already got another funded account, so you're just collecting them at this point.
And having more funded accounts allows me to that eases the mindset a little bit because now all of a sudden, if you can make 1 to 2%, I mean, 1 to 2% per week is fantastic. Like I consider that
Mm,
great. That can be life changing, especially if you start scaling that up to different accounts. So if you have two accounts and you're doing 1 to 2% a week, that's already on the verge of life changing. So that's really all it
yeah,
takes is not
exactly.
targeting. So I'm looking forward to the process as well.
Amazing. One last question, then I'll let you go. For someone who is new to trading, who's probably watching this video, who wishes they were in your position right now, what would be the one bit of advice you could give to that person?
It's boring, but ignore the strategy to start and focus on your mindset and your psychology. You think, and I thought this the same way coming in. That's like, oh, I won't have those same problems. Like I understand data, like it'll be fine. The psychology won't be an issue, and I was incredibly incorrect. The psychology was immediately an issue, um, and the best way to do that is to get experience. Get
Hmm.
yourself on the charts daily, and not just back testing because you get this artificial confidence from back testing because you just see these things happen and retroactively, and you're like, oh yeah, that was easy. I could do that all the time. But mostly, just even with demo, it does a great job of simulating.
Yeah.
Trade it for an entire week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months, even. I know that's no fun to anyone, but you need to simulate your full range of emotions. Because one week you might have a great week and be like, yeah, this is easy. But what happens if you have a bad week? What happens if you start your week with 3 losses in a row? How are you going to respond to that? That's the way that practice kind of teaches you these things. So I would say it's a
Yeah.
two-pronged approach. One, get comfortable with discipline and get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think is the most important part. Realize that it's going to be uncomfortable and get comfortable with the fact that it's going to feel that way, and that's okay.
Mm.
Going to struggle at times, but don't lose sight of what you're trying to do. And then second is the just the practice, the repetitions. It's the only way to get better at anything for anyone. Anyone who you've seen as excellent at something has probably failed far more times than you've even tried. So that's
Yeah.
all you can do is keep pushing repetitions and don't quit. And I think part of being smart in the beginning and doing those demos and reps and all that stuff allows you to stay in the game because you're not risking your own capital. You're learning, but people get into trouble when they get in there and they YOLO all their own capital or fail a whole bunch of firms right off the bat, and
Yeah.
then they can stay in the game long enough to be successful. So
100%.
yeah, find a way
Yeah.
to practice, most likely demo or challenge accounts, but keep it small, keep it simple. A 5K account, a 10K account, like start very small where you're not risking a lot of your own capital to simulate those emotions and find out the variety of things you'll feel, and then just don't quit. Be
Yeah.
consistent enough with your risk where you can stay in the game until you're successful, because it's a numbers game. You'll get there, like you said, like you showed 10 years. Like I'm sure there was times in there where you're like, this is never going to work for me, I
Oof.
can't do this.
Oh,
I,
100%.
I
Yeah.
yeah, tons of them, I'm sure, even probably months of them, but you stayed in the game and now you're successful. So you have to manage your risk well enough to stay in the game long enough to get over the hump, because everyone will if you can just stay in the game.
Yeah, very, very well said. Probably best bit of advice you could definitely give to a new trader. Excellent stuff. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, your strategy, and being an all-round great guy to talk to. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Of course, yeah, this has been a lot of fun, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this. I love talking about trading. I think it's fascinating and fun, and thank you for being the reliable prop firm where we can even do this and have this conversation in the first place. And I said that all of my initial interactions have been incredible on the Hola Prime side, so I can't wait to keep doing this more.
Oh, definitely. And if you're up for it, as you progress, we'll love to have you back on at some point, as a little update and see how you're getting on. That would be fantastic.
Of course, happy to.
Amazing. Thank you, Kyle. And to all the viewers, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy this video, go ahead, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, turn on channel notifications, join our Discord, and also tune in to Ola Prime TV every Monday to Friday, every trading day, where myself and all of our great trading coaches break down the live charts, take live trades, and do so much more. But apart from that, thank you guys for watching. Thank you again, Kyle, for coming on, and we'll see you again very soon. Take care.
Hola Prime, trade with transparency.